it's like.
We're going to walk into the first floor.
Okay.
Remember, there are 4 exhibit floors. Actually, I'll take you on to the campus. The campus is 16 acres, the same size as the World Trade Center. 25 buildings are on that campus. You have 2 basements, a sub-basement and a basement to it. Then you have 4 exhibit floors, and these are monster floors with heights of about 20 feet, so they can actually cut the floor in half and make a mezzanine, and they often do that in the storage rooms. Then you have the 5th and 6th floors, which are for the science departments. Exhibition puts all the exhibits together, has its own building. It used to be in the powerhouse because this museum ran on its own power before they switched to Con Edison to it. Now they're still in that building, but they get their power from Con Ed. So exhibition has that. Education has its own wing next to the planetarium. The planetarium is separate from the American Museum. It's Hayden Planetarium, American Museum of Natural History, 2 different institutions that share the space. So you have Neil deGrasse Tyson, and his office is up in the planetarium wing to it. And then you have AMNH in itself. Collections are phenomenal. This is a world-class museum. So we work with museums in regional. So it was that critical to the infrastructure of New York to it. We'll see on the little tour I'll give you there at the museum that this was a property that was owned by the city of New York. And I don't know if you understand New York City history, but Boss Tweed of the Tammany Hall decided it would be a great thing to have a natural history museum that compete with Philadelphia and Washington. So he gave it over in charter to the museum itself. And the museum comes there in 1877. The cornerstone is laid by Ulysses S. Grant. So there's a lot of very famous Americans that are influential here, and another set of families is the Roosevelts. In fact, it's one of the granddaughters of Teddy, Anna Roosevelt, was a research associate in anthropology for a while to it. So you got a giant place. You got a giant place in the staff. There's over 2,000 science staff running loose in that place 24/7. It's not that you go home on the weekends when you're doing research. You're doing research. So you have a huge science staff, whether you are a curator, a curatorial assistant, or a visiting researcher. I was, for 20 years, a research associate, so it's almost like a curator. You're given the keys to the shop of what you're doing, and you can come in and do your work to it. Museum also has a security staff, which is also partly the janitorial staff to that. It had at one time a whole workshop of workmen, buildings and grounds. We had carpenters, plumbers, electricians, locksmiths. Now there was only one locksmith, which everyone moaned at because it's the only guy to get you around in these weird sort of key situations to it. So it's almost like a city.
It left me wondering after this interview what he meant by that. Why did he say the city? And I had the chance, over the course of the museum trip, where I asked him, why the city? And he said, I like the city. I like how it can be confusing. I've been here my whole life, yet there's always something confusing, and you can never get used to this confusion. And I just like the feeling that I'm part of this confusion.
See on the first floor? Let's see, I'm going to take you to the Hall of Northwest Coast Indians. This is very particular to our Anthro history. This is the hall that Franzbo was built, and is still extant, a little modified, but still extant to it. All the Boasians spent time in there, including Claude Lévi-Strauss, where he comes up with binary opposition in language and looking at transformer mask of the Northwest Coast to it. Down, if we're going that way, we go left, underneath the canoe, which is now hanging from the ceiling, that you know about, and we're going to go into the Hall of Human Origins, and you're going to see a mini-me in there explaining bones. I got nailed one day to do this thing, so there I am. But everyone who was working in bones in the division at that time, when the hall is being put together, is in there. So a lot of the explanatory voices are Ian Tattersall, Will Harcourt Smith. Some of the sculptures that you're going to see are the sculptor who made the reconstructions or his boyfriend. And it goes on like that. There's all these little jokes in the hall that you won't catch it unless you know about it. To it, but I'm a video where I'm pointing out butchery marks on bone, and Ian's the overvoice of the thing. That takes us through the first floor of Anthro exhibits that I'll show you. We go down to floor 2. I'll bring you to the South American archaeology and some of the stuff I've been doing at AMNH. So we'll take a look at that on there. Plus, we're going to have to go through the Hall of Mesoamerica, which Gordon Eckham was the curator for. Craig Morris did South America at the time. Junius Bird never got, well, he retired before that hall came up to it. That will take us through there. There's a lot of other biological halls there. We go up to floor 3, and I think they've just closed the North American Hall because of the new NAGPRA codicils to the law to it, so we may not see as much as we could see in there. A lot of cultural objects they don't want to have shown to it. And let's see what else is on that third floor. Primates. And I'll introduce you to Macy the chimpanzee. That was one of the biological curator's pets, who used to ride a tricycle on the 5th floor. She got stuffed, and there you are. At the 3rd floor, and the 2nd floor, we'll also do the Hall of Africa, if you like, which is Colin Turnbull's hall. Then let's see. That takes us through the anthropology floors, because the 4th floor is all about fossil mammals and dinosaurs, and if you've never seen this stuff, it's a wowzer. You've got original fossil material on display. One of my favorites is they 3D printed a titanosaur, which is one of the biggest sauropod dinosaurs. This is like a brontosaurus or an apatosaurus, but this thing was so big that they actually had to bend the tail around the hall and stick the head outside the hall. So as you get off the 4th floor elevator, there's this Titanosaur there smiling at you to it, and it's a 3D print of a juvenile. Picture this, it's a juvenile, not an adult. And that was quite fun when they installed that. But we have original Ice Age mummies on display in the 4th floor, like a mammoth. You can see skeletons on the 1st floor of a dodo bird, but on the 4th floor we got all sorts of fun mammals like saber-toothed cats and ground sloths and things like that to it. It's a long day. Wear very comfortable shoes, because we're going to be walking and walking and walking, and you will get museum feet and museum head by the end of this. That gives you sort of a quick tour.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And never mind, he reaches for a flower pot, takes out the flowers, pours it over Junius. Junius comes alive again, stands up real happy, whistling, saying, "Tom, that's what you got to do in life. Grab it," and walks out to his office. Okay. Yes, in today's world, bye. So, yeah, he was famous up and down South America for basically that kind of behavior. And many of the South Americans I've talked to have memories of Junius in his sticky hands to it. I don't know how Peggy Bird, his wife, ever tolerated that. But then again, we never knew exactly what Peggy Bird was doing too. So going on in that kind of thing. So there, you can see Junius in another light that's there. And then I like Junius as the archaeologist. In the 1930s, he had insights that many people didn't understand. He's the guy who actually gives you the association of Pleistocene mammals with people and finds cave sites to excavate. He understands, and I think it's also his collaboration with Jim Ford about how to seriate. And seriation means looking at styles of artifacts over time. So the typology we use for basically looking at Paleo-Indian lithics is Junius's. It's still being used today. And it's used in multiple, from Argentina, Chile, up into Paraguay. They're still using the bird typologies to it.
So when we saw the film, Meet Me at the Canoe, I personally saw that there was like a strong connection and pride with the curators and to like conserve these exhibits. And I was just wondering, like, what you saw with like the evolution of how these exhibits were taken care of, because I saw in the film that there was extensive time in researching how to do the best possible job to take care of these exhibits.
Well, that goes on to the museum stewardship. For most AMNH staffers, we realize that collections can be used by all sorts of researchers, but we are the stewards to guarantee that the next generation of scholars can come in and use it, or natives, or whoever wants to come and do that. So it is a museum for people. I guess then we're talking anthropology, but also if you're in the biological divisions, they hold a number of type specimens of different species. And researchers come to use the collections to see a type specimen of some species to it. Museum is also doing a lot of DNA prospecting for pharmaceuticals and such. There are some partnerships that are going on there. And the only way you can have that happen is if you act as a steward to it. So there's a no destroy, no sale situation with museum materials to it. Repatriation is possible if you can demonstrate that, one, you can care for the object, two, you are related to that object one way or another, and it has to be a very close relationship. I can't just be a Muncie native and say that's mine. It belongs to the collective group, and what does the collective group say about that? So again, you're learning an anthropology of stewardship to it. As the canoe, yeah, there is a great deal of pride about that. It's one of the only big canoes out there. So the museum is always sort of loving that. That was actually made into a stamp, U.S. stamp, when it was on the floor. I should have brought that in for you. I have copies of those U.S. stamps to it. Big postcards and such. I mean, it's something that is a showstopper to it. And even so, when you get to see the films, what's his name, the photographer who filmed the Northwest Coast doing a dance in one of those big canoes, again, it's blanking on my mind at this moment. That's the type of canoe that was used to it. So for staffers, museum holds, almost every staffer retired now can also talk about that canoe and sort of where you were at whatever sort of near meeting at the canoe type of thing. It is the oldest section of the museum, which Ulysses S. Grant puts the cornerstone to. And when they redid the floor, they had a new discovery. The tile mosaic that's there was the original tile mosaic that Boaz had people install. There's stars in the floor. It's just wonderful to see it. So this takes you back even to a time as an anthropologist of Franz Boas. I often like to sit in the older hall when it was sort of more his design to realize all the anthropology that happened in that hall. These are my ancestors. Although I'm both basically a bioarchaeologist or a zooarchaeologist, it's still anthropology we're talking about. And that's also your heritage. You can actually get a direct tie to that stewardship. And I think that's critical of museums like the AMNH. So I hope that sort of answers some of your question. If you have more to it, we can add to it later.
As you can see right here, we have a series of photos of exhibits that Emerosi had participated in. This first one is a Japanese village that he worked on. This next one may not seem like a lot up close, but when you zoom out, it shows a whole wintry village. This village was all made by him, even the painting that's in the back. In the next one, we have Mesoamerican pyramids. These were also built by Emerosi, which also makes you wonder, why did he do this? Why do this? Simple enough. It's his passion. He loves this. He grew up doing this, as you could tell through the video. Many people who walk through the museum do not see the dedication curators put into these exhibits to preserve them. Fortunately, we have an anthropologist who works at SUNY New Paltz who has stories, recollections of the past through the museum. And it is through Amorosi that my eyes were open to argue that museum curators and the importance of museums are just as important as photography and film.